Nelson, I want to come back to one of the other things you mentioned there, which is one of our challenges, centralizing everything into one place. When we met to discuss the L&D trends last year, we learned that almost a third of employees are waiting days or longer for information, and over half are struggling to find documents when they're working remotely. Maybe tell us a bit more about why it's such a challenge, but how it can be one of our easiest wins.
Yeah, I think a lot of this also comes from we have great consumer products that have really made us intolerant to poor user experience, right? Like, we're so used to getting things right when we need it, right the way we want it. And, the fact that people would pay more money for a product just to be able to get it the next day delivery just goes to show how impatient we want something, and any amount of friction or is inconvenient. Now you apply that at work where, you know, we're already saying we all think we're busy, right? We're all time poor and we're all trying to manage a lot of things. And then you add to that any amount of friction to find the knowledge or learning that I need, right? I'm always going to choose the path of least resistance. And so if it's too difficult for me to find internally, I'm just going to go to Google. I'm just going to go search on Google because it's a lot easier for me to search and find something that's going to answer. Now, but that's not a problem for the employee, but it's a problem for the organization, because the organization has probably spent a lot of time and money building, buying, learning resources and creating internal knowledge and capturing, but done such a bad job of bringing it together that there's low engagement and ROI for those things you've already spent time and money on, because people are still going to Google to look for it. And so I think we need to spend as much time thinking about discovery as we do in thinking about creating content, right? Which isn't the case, right? Just if you're listening to this and you're someone who's created a lot of content, just think about how much time you spent creating the content versus how much time you spent thinking about how that content's going to be discovered. Often it's the way you probably spend 80% of your time and effort on creating the content, but 20% of the time thinking about the discovery. But it's the discovery where everything fails, right? Too much friction. I can't find it. I'm too impatient. I'm going to go to Google. And that's where centralizing really comes into place. It's not a novel idea in the large scheme of things, but it's a novel idea when you think within the sphere of kind of learning skills and knowledge. And that's why we recommend it's not about everything needs to live on one platform, but you do need a single front door to accessing all of your learning, knowledge, and skills. And that's one of, I would say, probably the most fundamental problem we solve for a lot of the organizations we work with. It's often the fact that they've got a big diverse ecosystem. It's all over the place. And the first thing we do is we integrate with it all. We bring it together into a single searchable platform. So there's a single front door. And then we tag it and organize it with skills to make it more meaningful. But that in itself strips out so much friction that previously existed. Just by doing that one thing, organizations tend to see a significant step up in the engagement they were getting because discovery is so much easier. Now you combine that with embedding that single front door in the flow of work. So now you're saying not only is there only one place you have to go to, but that one place lives everywhere you work, right? Are you in Google search? It's there. Are you in Slack? It's there, right? Which now makes it even more easier to find what we need. And so, if it takes, I often think a good measure is, if it takes L&D a long time to find what they're looking for, you might as well forget anyone else being able to find anything.
Yeah, I think we can all relate to that. It's something I've created. It's in a folder. I can't remember exactly which one of my folders is in. So if I created it and it's my folder and I still don't know how to find it. I love that framing of it not being a problem for the employee, but being a problem for the organization, because you're right. If let's imagine that I work in the customer support team and there's a real issue with a customer. Now, if I can't find our internal resources and how to deal with conflict or conflict resolution or something like that, and I use something external, now we lose control of what the ultimate customer experience is. Because rather than using the internal content that is specific to our product, I'm looking for general content that, to your early point, lacks all of the context that makes it that useful. So we have the resource that will enable people, but discovery being an issue prevents them from using it. And now we've lost any real influence on the ultimate end performance and the ultimate customer experience. So when you think in those terms, it really is an issue that it's such a simple, quick win to just get everything to a place where it can be found, and imagine then the output it has. Crazy.
Yeah, I think it's recognizing that your LMS might be a really important thing for L&D, but it isn't to the employee, right? It's just another place where you're telling them to go to. And I think a lot of this actually comes from understanding your internal customer. And this is where I do think, we're big advocates of L&D could borrow a lot of stuff from product development and the product mindset. And a big part of that is really speaking to your internal customers and not doing something where I have an LMS, you need to come to the LMS. But the idea is you're serving an internal customer, you need to create your offering in a way that meets their needs and meets them where they are. And I think you'll find probably doesn't take a lot of conversation for you to find out that employees are saying it's just too hard to find it, right? And it might be, maybe you have centralized it, but the UX of the platform that you're using is just terrible, right? Like it's just made it even hard because all they've done is aggregate everything so before I was seeing 10 things, now I see a gazillion things. And it's just made it really difficult because it's just a long catalog. We recently saw a provider come up with, again, I'll tell you how not to do centralize is when you get like big ERP HR systems that kind of strong arm you into thinking, no, you need to have everything in one platform. If not, it's really difficult for these platforms to talk to each other. That's rubbish, right? Because in this day and age, with APIs, all of these things can talk to each other. But what amazed me was they were trying to sell on a learning platform, which was basically a long table catalog of courses. And I was like, if you really think this is going to solve the discovery channel, that a time poor employee is going to come and go for a 1,000,000-row table to find that content, we've really not spoken to the internal customer. That's how not to fall for the centralizing of tools. It's not about the centralizing of the tools, right? And that's got to be very clear. You can have, one of our biggest customers that we work with has about 25 different content libraries across the organization. So it's not about get the best provider for everything you need, get the best tool, but you want to have a single point of access, right? You want to have a single that's the key. The tools don't have to be all a part of the same provider, but the front door needs to be the same. What that allows you to do, it allows you to change the content sources in the background without changing the discovery experience for the employee.
Yeah, that's a great point. It's not just having it in one place, it's the point of access being the same, because if you do then keep having to change it, then what you do is create a bad experience for your end user, and because they're constantly getting used to a new front door or a new search function. And as someone who's sat in on user sessions where people use websites where it isn't a single scroll, I've seen people scroll past the thing they're looking for about 2 billion times. So that example where it's all in just one thing, good luck with that. Can't see it happening. But to your earlier point, the best way to find this out, why the friction's there, is to speak to your end customer. They might just say that, I don't know where to look. So maybe it's just like where is it issue? It might just be that the titles are really unclear. People might say that, we don't name things internally in a great way. There can be other parts of this where if you speak to your end user, they'll tell you what the quick win is, because they might just say, I never get what it is. Like we have loads of resources with the same name, for example, as well. Like these all feed into that discovery issue.
The deep dive in problem discovery, Gary, you're talking about, is so critical, right? Like I often find, I think it's the last 3 years of LinkedIn's research says that time is one of the top 3 barriers to kind of learning engagement. That as a headline statistic, right? People are just busy, they don't prioritize learning, but there's probably a lot we can learn by digging into that statistic a bit more, right? Because what they might be saying is, I'm too busy to accommodate your really terrible user experience. I'm really busy to look in 10 different places to find the thing I'm looking for. I'm really busy to go through your catalog of irrelevant content to find the one thing that's relevant to me. Because what I don't buy is the interpretation that people are saying they're too busy to learn. Right? I don't buy that, because there's other data that doesn't support that. Even just speak to people again, right? And you'll realize most people are learning outside of work, right? They're listening to podcasts, they're reading blogs, they're going to LinkedIn because they think it's a place where they can learn from some of the things people are putting out there. So they're learning in their own way, right? And so I don't buy the fact that people don't have time to learn. They probably don't have time to learn the way the organization expects them to do it.